two things, and they may just be pet peeves of mine, but if we're gonna have a candid conversation, one, race as an identifier, we are different colors. And so the fact that we identify and notice that we're different colors is neutral. It's the value that we attach once we make that designation, that's the problem. So race didn't come about in the way you, I mean, I know you're giving a simplified, but it's an important distinction.
Well,
secondly, racism is different from prejudice. Wait. It's different from prejudice.
I just
when
want
we talk about identifying, now what is common is that we all have an ancestral connection to a land base. And sometimes it's helpful. One of the reasons there's so much pigmentation among the Hispanic or Caribbean people is because of the triangular slave trade that brought Africans throughout the New World. But there wasn't, the reason we say Hispanic is because a lot of the Americas was colonized by the Spaniards. It's a difference between people who speak Spanish and people who are indigenous to an American land base, north, central, south. And when we look at it in relationship to our history as subject, oppressed, alienated, disenfranchised, and enslaved people, you've established a base of commonality. So if we're going to have a real discussion, we need to be very clear that we're talking about something much more complex. And we need to not equivocate racism and prejudice.
We're not there yet. Let me just stop for a second because what we want to do is try and work together, taking steps. In having a conversation, all the things that you said are well recognized, and I think, based on background in history, those are real good points that should be made and need to be made, and I think will come out eventually.
And so my second page of notes, we'll just, that was pretty much the second page of notes. So, thank you, that's praise me. But, and usually, and this is going to be, and this is like, we definitely allow the free flow of information. We love that. And we commend, we want everybody to partake, right? But we did say that this was going to be a dialogue, and while Sister Braisley knows a lot of this information, we feel that one of the most important things is that we build together. And so, while we all have different, there's a number of folks in here that teach cultural diversity and do this for a living as well. They could do a better job than either Fred or I do it. But we kind of want to just make sure we all start with the basics so we can all start building it, right? Just because we thought that was a very important point to make even within cultures. It's important for us to understand that these issues, when you talk about being marginalized, oppressed, the slavery, the trade, the exploitation, because exploitation has a lot to do with why we find ourselves in this condition now. All right? So this is just, we're setting the stage. Now, with that understanding, I'd like to sort of just start, and I'll apologize. We had two of our panelists. Unfortunately, one is stuck in traffic and will most likely not be able to make it, and the second one had a medical emergency. Our hearts and prayers with that family. But, nonetheless, I wanted to make sure we allow 2 minutes to each of our panelists to start talking about who they are, where they come from, and then we'll start getting into the dialogue piece, right? Ask certain questions, let them speak, and we'll take it from there. So for now, it'll just be a brief introduction.
Hi, everybody. My name is Diane Gomes. I was born and raised right here on Long Island. And started in Freeport. I'm the current. I started in Freeport. I went to Roosevelt, and I wound up in Hempstead. Okay, so but I qualify to sit here. Well, my mother. Thank you. I do qualify. I was, like I said, born and raised in Freeport. And for those of you who know about back in the day, y'all don't know. But back in the day, in Freeport, it was potato farms. We had, 6 of us, my mother and father. I was so blessed to have a mother and father that raised me. And 6 of us in a little 1-bedroom house, right there on Albany Avenue in Freeport. Okay, we had an outhouse till I was 12 years old. And we had chickens. I went with that. high school, that's when we were introduced. And the friends that we had in the grade school, had a few white friends who grew up on the block with us, they told us, I'm sorry, we can't associate with you in the school because then I won't have no friends, you know? So that, I said, well, I got enough friends to get rid of you. I don't care about that. But the thing is, oh, just a point I'm gonna say and then I'll move on. My mother was my teacher. Every day she said, hold your head up. You are just as good as anybody else, no matter what people say to you. And that's the way I've been all my life. And they said, oh, you talk too much. You know, you shouldn't say things because people are going to say, hurt you. No, I'm just as good as you. Why I can't talk to you? And at that point, my brother was a big football star. So we had white folk in and out of our house. That little one-bedroom house. My mother used to cook egg sandwiches for all the football players. And so we were exposed. And then, but we couldn't go across the water because it was a canal. We was on this side of the water, and the white folk was on the other side. But we were exposed, and we found out they had no more than what we had. They didn't know any more than what we knew. So when you grow up like that, and you're exposed, you got a different outlook on life. And so I think that's my basic concept about black, white, Hispanic. Nobody's better than me. Nobody's better than me. God made us all the same. And I believe that. And I'm just as good as anybody else. And when I stand up and speak, if you don't like what I say, leave the room. But, you know, I have to speak my mind. And I've been free to do that, thank God, in this country. Even though, as I told us in high school, and, okay, like you been saying. All right, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. I'm Secretary Easley, pastor of the Union Baptist Church here in the village of Hempstead. She took part of my minutes, so I won't be long. I grew up in the South. Some of you don't call it the South, it's Virginia. Well, I'm right there. I grew up in a community that was nothing but black and white. 74 in my class, only 10 black folks. I've always lived under the impression that I have to see everything through the lens of color. I tease all the time that I have a color antenna that's invisible on the top of my head. Because I have been trained all of my life prior to coming to New York, the melting pot, to see the world through the lenses of race and color. However, moving here, I realize it's more than black and white. That the world is much larger than a little country town called Matthews, Virginia. And that all of us, regardless of color, background, creed, whatever, ought to have a right to live a life of equality, a life where we are given the same opportunity to succeed. And so as we come and talk and dialogue tonight, I pray that somebody's eyes will be open and that the light will go off in somebody's head. That although we can't change laws tonight, maybe when we leave this place, we'll treat our neighbor